Hi folks, Lou here, and I'm going to give my answers to a question that I ran across on Twitter from Clint Davey. I have no idea who Clint Davey is, but presumably he's somebody who designs games since he asked this question. And the question was, what would you rather see in a game as a way of handling random events? And he offered three choices. One, a single large dice-based chart on an A4 page. Evidently, he's British rather than American. Two, a counter sheet of chits that go into a bag. Slightly more expensive, as he says, although I think it's quite a bit more expensive, actually. Three, a deck of cards, slightly more expensive again. Well, the first thing I'd say is if you can possibly avoid it, charts are right out these days, unless you're making a game for a niche market, which is to say war games. People who play war games are accustomed to charts and may tolerate them, but charts or lookup tables of any kind are just right out in mainstream tabletop games. And of course, this is a tabletop game question. In a video game, the computer keeps track of it and shows it on the screen and so on. And it's a case where computers make things a lot simpler. Many people do not like little chits. It's not unusual in war games to have little chits that you put in a cup. So you provide the cup and there's no expense for the bag, which probably costs more than the chits. But many people don't like little chits, and they're not accustomed to doing it that way except in war games. Now, cards are what everyone, quote unquote, expects in mainstream hobby games. They can possibly be mini cards rather than full-size cards if there's not a lot of information on the card. But if you're going to put much information on the card, it needs to be fairly large. Now, when we talk about cards, some people who design collectible card games have a 7-line rule, which is if you have more than 7 lines of text on a card, people aren't going to read it. Well, in fact, a lot of people aren't even going to read 7 lines. They're not going to read the text at all. On the other hand, if you just have a bunch of symbols, then old folks like me, even though my vision is quite good, are not going to like it because I don't like to just see a bunch of symbols. I like words. It's a lot easier to cope with. But younger people sometimes are so accustomed to icons and so on that they don't mind. So when you come down to it, there are two parts of this question. One is the expense. How much is it going to cost? And the other is how easy is it going to be for people to get the information? And you have to decide that as you're making the game. But if you're making a mainstream game, then you've got to go with cards pretty much. Or if you're going to pull things out of a bag, you need to have 1-inch pieces that you're pulling out, not little half-inch pieces as would be typical in a war game. Thanks for listening.